Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. I have an equation, two words, and I want to kind of unpack these today. It's a different way to look at something, and I really like this because I love talking about growth. As you know, I wrote a book called Growing on Purpose, so love to talk about growth. This scenario is talking about how growth equals risk. And it was interesting unpacking that because I found somebody that asked the question about how to grow more and risk less. So I'm like, yeah, I think I need to learn more about that. So I'm honored to be hanging out with Ryan Johnson. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, Dave. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for jumping on. You're the founder and fractional COO of Three Sparrows Executive Services. So that's a mouthful. So fill
Yeah,
us in on what's going on over at Three Sparrows.
yeah. There's a lot going on. We've got a lot of services to help small businesses, and that's the whole thing here. I just have fallen in love with small business, and as we know, it's the backbone of the economy. And there's a gap there. There's a gap between the executive leadership and the production. So as you know, the owners of a small business have a lot going on. They're wearing a lot of hats. They're getting into the weeds of operation. They're trying to lead the vision. They're trying to scale the company. And quite honestly, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
And so that's my mission, is to step in and help those busy entrepreneurs, even executive leaders of small to medium-sized businesses, grow their company without risking that burnout.
Oh, that's awesome. So for people that don't know, what does COO stand for?
Yeah, Chief Operations Officer.
So you're then a fractional COO. And so when you say fractional for you, Ryan, what does that typically mean?
The short version is it's part-time.
Okay.
So that's just it's a fancier word. It's been around. The word fractional has been around for about 10 years.
Okay.
The finance field, lawyers, they've been fractional for years. They've worked on contract basis. This is really just kind of a new way to frame it. But it's someone that can get in and become a part of the executive leadership team to help the owner directly, and without risking that full-time executive salary. And so we all know that C-suite positions are all about $200,000 to $300,000 plus benefits. That's a big chunk and a lot of risk to take on for a small, even a medium-sized business at times. And so to have someone come in and be a part of this and help them grow that company on a fractional basis, fraction of the time, fraction of the money, seems to be a win-win situation for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think you bring up a good point, Ryan, at the beginning. We as entrepreneurs, we're used to having our CPA, our attorney, any of the other ancillary, type of people. We're used to them being fractional. We don't usually say they're fractional, but we're used to calling them when we need them or buying a block of time from them or whatever that is. So you have actually taken that concept that's been around for a long time, if I'm understanding you right, and kind of pushed it into the operations side for a small to medium business. And again, pick a number, a $5 million company of annual sales, that maybe is making 8% or something, probably can't afford to give half of that away to, like you said, a COO. So then you come along and help them. I'm just curious, Ryan, do you run into a lot of resistance or people with blind spots that are like, this couldn't work for me? Do you tend to see that, or are people becoming more and more open to this concept?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody is hesitant to trust somebody, right? To come in and run operations for them. That's just they hold it close to them, especially if they're just the owner and CEO. They're founder, owner, CEO. They're going to hold it close. So yeah, absolutely. But blind spot, yes. They think things are going just fine, and I think that's the hard part, because you don't want to try to convince somebody that they're wrong, right? You want to just kind of come in and show them some of the values that you can provide. And typically that goes over better, for sure. But there are certainly blind spots when it's just one executive leader looking out for everything. And really, when they get to that 4 million annual gross revenue, 4 to 5, that's when they need to really start looking at a fractional COO. It's a growing space for sure. It's picking up in popularity, especially with some of these new operating systems that are out there like EOS. A lot of people are adapting that and using that as their COO platform. And so it is definitely growing, and people are much more open to it than they have been before.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm guessing, I mean, we run into people on our coaching side, Ryan, that are like, hey, granddaddy did it this way. My dad did it this way. So this is definitely an evolution. But I like, again, what you said, taking it into a different context, because I'm sure a $10 million company doesn't have full-time attorneys, doesn't have full-time CPAs generally on their staff, so this just kind of goes right along with that. Is it hard for the person that you work with at the beginning to kind of let go of some of those things? I mean, this is like their baby. This is like their kid, right?
Yeah.
And here comes this guy, Ryan Johnson, who I never really don't know much about. All of a sudden, I'm supposed to give him the keys to my car.
Right.
It just feels unnatural. So how do you kind of help them ease that pain, that tension that they might be feeling?
Yeah, it's a long on-ramp. So there's you're talking about, I'm in conversations with a company right now, been for the past 6 months, and we're just having continual conversations about their plans, what they want to do, their next steps. And so I'm having a conversation with them a lot. So there's a lot of free consultation. There's a lot of asking questions for me to really understand. I don't lead with any advice.
Sure.
I just come in there with questions. How can I help you? Let's unpack that. So there's a lot of months of unpacking. And so about anywhere from a 6 to 12 month on-ramp. So there's a lot of conversations. So by the time we really develop a personal relationship. And so the last client that I just wrapped up here that was successful, and typically fractional is a little bit longer, but we established an end goal for them, and we reached it. And so end of the contract, and that's a win for me, because I helped them be able to grow in the next phase. So they were very hesitant, even though I know my last client, I knew them well, at least one of them well, but one of them was really hard to let go. It was, and admittedly so, self-admittedly, I said, we've been working on this for a long time, and we want this to succeed. And so you have to be careful. You don't want to step on any toes, right? To come in and just say, well, I've got all this figured out. That's not what it is. It's a team aspect. It's me partnering with these owners to help them reach their end goal. So when you approach it that way, it starts to fade, it starts to melt. All of the tension really over time melts away.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's great for people to realize that there's a longer on-ramp, like you said, purely because, we tend to want to keep that information to ourselves as long as we possibly can. So from a fiscal perspective, it makes sense to not release that information early on. As we gain trust with you, then all of a sudden we start to realize that, wow, this guy actually, wasn't sent by the competitor. He does mean well, right? And he does have my best interest in mind. It's got to be a tough shift, though, for business owners to go from, they're so used to doing it themselves, wearing so many different hats, to being able to hand that off. I appreciate that. Are they then excited once they kind of catch the vision? I'm just curious, are they excited to see like what else you can do for them? Do they start to realize that, wow, now I can work, on my business rather than in my business? Is there a freedom that you start to see there in time?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you lead with those outcomes.
Yeah.
You lead with, hey, do you want to work on the vision more? Do you want to work on the business more instead of in the business? That's why they got into the business.
Sure.
They wanted to get the end result. They started producing, they started serving, and all of a sudden everything's going everywhere. And they never wanted to be in operations. They just wanted to get to the end result. And even as a solopreneur, entrepreneur, for me, that can be the same way too. And so I understand that. I feel their pain. I understand. So we talk about the end goals, the motives, and the fact that I'm not doing this on my own. I'm taking your vision, your mission, and just making sure I transfer that properly to the rest of the team.
Sure.
So it's not like I'm coming in with some weird views and something that's totally different that no one's ever heard of before. We're just pulling that team together with the vision and making it all happen. And so that CEO and owner can go do what only they can do to grow the business.
Wow. Well, and you bring up the team, so I gotta believe, Ryan, from the team's perspective, that they're pretty excited to see some outside influence in that group. There's a Bible verse that says, "In a multitude of counselors is safety," and so I love that thought process. And it's like, man, that must really make sense in that situation because. And again, every owner has a weakness. And if we're able to, train to our weakness and get somebody else in there and that's their strength, that would be fantastic. So do you tend to see the team get pretty jazzed up and excited about this person coming on?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a little, you have to kind of work your way in there. We have a couple of meetings just to get to know each other a little bit, and really make sure the owner lays out what the end goal to this is, and this is why we're doing it. Not just, hey, this is Ryan, and you report to him now. I'll see you later. It's definitely a team. The owner still has a lot of involvement. Really, it's not like they just go away, but all the problems and questions start coming to me. Not that I'm going to do them. I'm going to lead them. With the systems and processes we put in place. Remember, this is how we do this. So that leads to the second piece of what I do and the outcome. And I might be getting ahead of you a little bit here, but I think it's important to say that also to build trust with these owners. Sometimes I start off just doing a little project. So for example, one company needed an employee handbook. They needed some basic core processes, SOPs, that sort of thing. And so we just contracted for that. Let's just do a month contract and let's knock out two deliverables. And if you like how I do things, we mesh. I work good with the team because I'm having to communicate with the team to get these things done. Then we can move on to a fractional role if that's what that's what we still think you need. So that really helps to break the ice too, as well. But the other service, if I'm a fractional, I'm going to do this. But sometimes they don't need a fractional, but they certainly need employee development. They certainly need to take their key leaders and teach them really the business operations fundamentals, how to maximize what they're doing, so they can help make great processes, run them, and then increase the productivity because of that. That's the X factor, as you know. You focus on the people. You got to focus on developing those people, or else none of this works.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And so I started a business in 91 with like $0 day one and sold it in 2012. And we were about 10 million in annual sales. And through that, we ended up with an operations manager probably halfway through. And it was so funny because I'm on the sales side, he's on the operational side. It's like oil and water, right? And so I'm just curious, when you come in as a fractional CEO, is there some resistance from the sales side, or are they like, yay, Ryan's coming here, or oh crap, Ryan's on his way? I mean, how does the sales side of the companies tend to look at these fractional COOs?
Well, I think if a COO does it right, if they come in again to make sure they understand, I'm part of the team. I'm here to help. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to organize things, coach, consult when needed. And every department has a process. Every department has an operations piece to it. Sales, especially, marketing and sales definitely has to have that. And so the fun part about that is to go in and start, gaining trust just by building that relationship, showing them, hey, I'm here for you. Let me hear your pain points from your standing point. And now let's reverse engineer that back to a very simple set of standard operating procedures for your area that helps you do what you want to do and the owner needs you to do. And so I think when you really go at it that way, now, if I were to come in day one and give them a sheet of paper and say, this is what we're doing now, go do it, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's cool. Well, and I want to go back to something you said, because there's got to be a fine line with this delegation thing, because I'm a fractional sales manager, I guess is the right word, for certain companies, watching their sales, meeting with their sales team. And it's super easy, at least for my personality, to blur that line like you were talking about. I'm not going to do it for you. Right. Yeah. That's what you said. But man, when you said that, I'm like, well, shoot, I'll do it for you. It was like my natural thing. My natural personality is to kind of blur that line and probably help more than maybe I need to. Is that hard for you is that line blurry for you, or is it super easy to say, hey, this is my list and this is your list and neither the twain shall cross?
No, it is hard because I'm a helper at heart. I took the DISC survey and just looking at that, it confirmed, it's spot on. It confirmed exactly what I know about myself is I'm a helper. So I will always default to jumping in there and saying, I'll save the day. I'll help get it done. Yeah. But that's not helping anybody. Sure. I did that for years as an executive leader, just jumped in and say, you know what, I'll take care of it. You just go do your thing. I'll follow back up and you can take it from there. Yeah. That's not helping them. That's all that's doing is training them to come back to you to put more tasks on the plate. And that is not, then it's going to bottleneck at me and not the owner. So my job is not to just push it down the line to me. It's to get this flow of information, stop making it a pond and make it a bunch of rivers and tributaries, just free flowing. So roundabouts versus stop signs, I guess, is a better visual. Gotcha. We don't need things coming and stopping with one person. So there's a lot of empowerment that needs to happen there.
So do you feel like you're also, are you crossing into coaching, business coaching, consulting? I mean, I gotta believe that it gets kind of, I don't mean murky in a bad way. It just kind of, that's gotta be hard to, deal with. I mean, if all of a sudden you start to see, employee retention, goes down. If you start to see, the growth of the company just kind of lagging. I mean, you're more on the process side where you're, I always look at it, and I don't know if this is right. I think about, I catch the fish and then you go and process the fish, right? You go ahead and do what you do, your magic, and make that thing taste good. All I did was catch the fish. Here's the fish, Ryan, good luck with it. Right. But if you're starting to see a bad fish come in that analogy, if that's right, I mean, if you're starting to see some of those danger signs, do you jump on those, or how do you handle that as a fractional COO?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to determine COO versus manager. Okay. So a lot of people say, oh yeah, I've got a COO, and so we drill down and ask about, okay, what do they do for you? What are this and that? Well, they have these tasks and they're responsible for this outcome and this and that. That's not an executive leader. That's a manager. That's someone that's got several tasks and they're trying to just focus in on a certain area. So a COO has the full scope that the CEO has, and that's sales, that's customer service, that's development, that's everything. And so you're working with all of these other managers. Typically, I don't work with anybody that doesn't have an ops manager already, because I want to empower that ops manager to be a COO. And that's the goal for me to get out of the business. Okay. So that person can move up if he's the right or she's the right person. If not, I'll stand the gap until we find somebody. But that's the delineation. And so when you start working with all of the departments, I just really want to make sure they understand that, hey, I'm here to empower you to do your job the best way you can be and create a win-win situation. A company wins, you win with promotions and bonuses. Sure. And we really try to attack it that way and make sure they understand the full scope of what we're trying to do.
Wow, that's cool. Is your goal, do you think, Ryan, to train yourself out of a job?
Yeah, absolutely. If I think that's fractionals really stand by that to say I'm here. So for me, typically, specifically on my website, I really want to put this prominent that I'm working with people under 10 million,
Sure.
anywhere from that 3 to 5-ish,
Yep.
6-ish.
Yep.
And my goal is to come in and bridge that gap of operations leadership to get you to sustainability at 10 million. As you know, that's a pretty stable place to
Sure.
be,
Yep.
depending on the profit margins. And then you can make a decision. Do I need a full time or not? And I'm here to help them get to that point. And that, if they want me, great. If they just want me to stay on for a quarterly meeting, regimen, that sort of
Sure.
thing, I'll do that too. I'm here to serve. I think for me to be successful in any fractional, to be successful, you have to hold everything very loosely.
Sure.
And so that's why I've developed a second revenue stream of the employee coaching. And that's really my passion, really, is
Gotcha.
coaching. I was a
Awesome.
baseball coach, college baseball coach. I'm a men's discipleship leader at my church. I want to see people grow. I want to see
Sure.
people maximize what they're doing
Sure.
and win in life and in business. So that's really where I'm headed. And ultimately, I would love to, I want to work for those companies, but really I want to work for any company that has leaders that they want to invest in, or that leaders come to me and say, "Hey, I'm not getting invested in. Can you mentor me and help me with that?"
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. When we come back, I want to learn about this 3P operations framework. So we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Awesome. Well, thanks again for hanging out. I love what you just said about the coaching piece, because I remember for myself in 2012 when our business was in the construction supply industry, and in 2008, boy, the building permits in our region, they just dried up by like 90%. I mean, it was bad.
Mm.
And so we made a conscious effort I thought to myself, I'm like, so if I keep my customer, my builders, architects, home builders, all these construction people, if I keep them in business, they'll keep me in business. So we started training them on every topic under the sun:
Mm.
QuickBooks, marketing, sales training, anything, memory training, anything that we could come up with, we would train them. And we actually grew our business 47% from '08 to 12.
Wow.
And so it was an awesome push up in that spot. And then after this was done in 2012, my business partner said, wow, we made it. We're awesome. We added 5 people on our team. We got 22 people. We can stop this training. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like the lifeblood of me, right? So I was at that fork in the road where I had to make a decision. Do I continue on in something that I'm okay with, but it's not my passion? Or
Yeah.
do I just, go full bore into coaching? So
Mm.
from your perspective, is the coaching piece, I mean, that's got to come hand in hand with that COO. I would assume it's pretty hard to separate that for you, correct?
Absolutely. It's that's where I focus in. So you get several different types of COOs. There's people that are so black and white, almost like a financial
Yeah.
person, that's just, it is what it is. This is the process, not much into the people, but we're going to get this done. It's uh, very strict model, almost like
Yeah.
EOS. Um, I'm unique in that I move towards the people side of things. Again,
Sure.
as a college baseball coach, I have a passion to bring out the best in people. So I have my 3P system as a training and development course. Moved in now in forming a boot camp out of that, and a management accelerator mastermind community.
Okay.
But so if people say, well, you know what, I don't need a a fractional COO, and I usually help them come to that conclusion right away. I say, you know what, that's not what you need. You've got an ops manager, you're small enough, you can do that. However, let me pour into that ops manager and make sure they have their business operations fundamentals down. They
Sure.
know how to set up great standard operating procedures. They know how to create an execution strategy. But also, I'm going to coach them as a person to make sure they know how to be their best in life, so that will carry over. Because
Sure.
if someone's personal life is out of whack,
Yeah.
they're not going to get anything done at work,
Yeah.
and they're probably going to end up leaving. And so there's a big element there. So that's really that P of the 3P system, people, is where my passion is, and where I really do a lot of my work.
That's awesome. I was hoping one of those P's was going to be people. I'm like, dude, if they're not, man, we're making them 4 P's because we're adding that one. So that's awesome. What college coach was it?
I coached my alma mater in Batesville, Arkansas, Lyon College, small NAIA school. But then I moved to University of Central Arkansas, claim to fame, Scottie Pippen back in the day. And so coached with them for several years and moved up into the Division I space, and found out that not quite for me. As 80 hours a week and not much pay, and loved the game, but it was time to move on for sure. Learned a lot of lessons.
Scotty listens, so tell Scotty hi, because he's always listening to our show. So now Scotty, we both know somebody together rather than just each other. That's awesome.
Nice.
So let's go through those 3 P's. So is people first, or is there an order of this, or how does that work?
Absolutely in order. So to summarize this, there's 5 P's to operations management. There's people, processes. So that's my first 2, people and processes. If you don't have great people, you can't create great processes, and you certainly can't execute them. And then the last P for me is productivity. So I just kind of slam in the last 3 P's of the 5 P framework, which is typically products and partners and profits. And so obviously all that takes care of itself if you create great processes to do those things. So I just shortened it, but I put a ton of emphasis on the people side.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, this is where you and I would part ways, because I would go from people to productivity. This whole process thing, not for me. So I love people, right? I mean, man, just fake it, dude. It'll be fine. A process, we don't need that. So, that's my blind spot. That's where I would definitely need that type of coaching. And so I think that's what's so important about what you just said for people listening. Ryan, if somebody's good at process but bad at people, or good at people like me and bad at process, right? Or productivity doesn't really factor in any of these, if you're not clicking on all 3 of those cylinders, that's where your company is going to struggle. And quite frankly, if it's a blind spot, you don't even know. A lot of times people don't even know that they have this. And so that's where I'm assuming that's where you come in, and, and kind of help them along. They have to be ready, though, I'm guessing, for this type of exposure, I'm going to call it, to somebody outside of their company, correct?
Yeah, it can be, it could be embarrassing, because really there is a big gap. People hire people and say, go do it, go get it done. You're a great worker. You've got a great history. I've seen it time and time again with people that I've hired, that when I didn't do process good, and I said, you know what, you're well qualified for this position. Let me know if you need anything. And just let them do their thing. Well, that's even more scary, because if the bottom line doesn't grow, you have no way to track down what happened. You automatically get into an accusing situation, and then they accuse you. Well, you never gave me the resources to really work, get the job done anyways. It's just a lot of negative cycles. So to me, that process side is like a warm blanket for everybody. It's rolling out expectations. It's saying, hey, here's the goals. What do you think about the goals? Is this doable? In another year, can we get to this level of growth or not? It's a lot of give and take, and that's the way it should be. And so when you do that, people should be really inspired and encouraged. Just say, man, I have a lot of ownership here. And that's the main thing that we're trying to do in the 3P framework, a business operations framework. I'm trying to take people from clock puncher to owner. And that's my 10X strategy for businesses. If because we know the owner is owning it, they're all in, they're heavily invested, sometimes highly leveraged. They've got to make this thing work. And so my passion is really make sure we get that vision and mission down to everybody, that everybody can take ownership like they take ownership. If that happens, if you got 10 employees, that's a 10x solution right there.
Right.
And so we're looking for multiplication, not just addition here.
Sure.
And the only way to do that is to really get people on board and connect with them and get them involved in the planning process.
Yeah.
Then people like to do processes. It's typically they're done wrong. They're just like, here's a big manual, go look, put the binder on the shelf, never look at it again.
Yeah.
And we're looking up at the end of the month going, what happened?
Yeah.
Aren't you following the processes? Well,
no,
I haven't looked at them in a while. They're sitting over there on the deal. So it's all about taking ownership and giving the ability to empower people. When that happens, then that's when the magic happens.
Well, and I think that it's interesting you bring up Scottie Pippen. He had a coach, right? And so you wonder what Phil Jackson would possibly have been able to tell Michael Jordan or Pippen or Horace Grant, any of those guys back in the day. But they were able to look at their maneuvers from an outside perspective, and they were able to say, hey, have you thought about this? That's what I think is so powerful about this type of a component to your business, is it brings in a whole fresh set of eyes. It brings in a whole different area that, quite frankly, we never thought of. I mean, I hear people even now, I have a high turnover rate, people say, and I'm like, well, why do you think that is? Wow, we just have a hard time with these people in our town. It's like, whoa, right away, super easy to blame them, right? Why don't you look at your own self for a second and be like, man, maybe I'm the problem. And I think that's what, whether it's a fractional COO, whether it's a coach where you kind of transition, that outside influence is so vital when it comes to running a business. Do you get resistance at that level at all? Or are people at that point pretty much, hey, seriously, Ryan, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Do you get both sides of that?
That's a good question. Yeah. I mean, I think when you get people in the right situation, and that's the key to finding great partners, is finding people that are ready to act. So my last client was a property management group, and they're on their last leg. So we're bleeding thousands and thousands of dollars a month. We can't make enough profit at the end of the day. We've got to do something fast, and so they needed a lot of help. And we rectified all the processes, got everybody on board, and got things running great. But it was too late. It was too little too late. So now the conversation shifts into, what do we cut to make sure the rest of the main business grows? And we were successful in that, but unfortunately it was too little too late. So you have to start early, because it's a snowball effect. Once it gets rolling downhill, it is hard to stop it and move it back.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and so we live part-time in San Diego and part-time in Wisconsin. And earlier this year in Wisconsin, we have a tropical plant that's in a pot that we take out in the summer and bring in the winter. And it was looking scraggly. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to snip this. There wasn't one green leaf, Ryan, left on that thing. And my wife's like, what did you just do? Right. Yeah. And like, just watch. And all of a sudden, sure enough, these sprouts came. And I think that's like what you just said, is sometimes we have to cut some of these pieces in order to save the whole ship, so to speak. So that's got to be a hard discussion. Do you tend to be involved in that discussion? Are you giving that type of feedback, or how do you interact in that situation?
Yeah, it's important for the COO to be real and not be negative. Real. And that's hard to do sometimes. But with the last client here, it was all about, I could sense that they weren't happy. I could sense they were frustrated, even when they wouldn't say it. And then sometimes they would say it. And so I could sense that this was not what they signed up for. And so we started having those conversations. And sure enough, I said, we didn't want to do this. We wanted to do the insurance part of our business. We wanted to do the rental flipping. We wanted to do that sort of thing. And that was it. And have some rental houses. We didn't want to do property management. We didn't want to do roofing. We didn't want to do maintenance. We didn't want to do all these things.
Wow.
We just thought we could do it better than everybody else and save money. And so I really respected them because they finally got to a place where they're just like all the defenses went away and they said,
Sure.
hey, we want to grow. We want to do this, have this freedom, flexibility for our family.
Yeah.
They were young, you're young guys that are movers and shakers, they're rock stars, they can get anybody to do anything
Sure.
type of thing. And so that's kind of what got them in trouble,
Yeah.
But they realized, okay, yeah, this is not what we wanted to do. So it was very exciting conversation, actually, when it's very liberating for them
Sure.
to say, yeah, we can let this go. Like, we don't
Cool.
need to keep doing all of this. So that's the fun part. And so I'm always trying to keep a pulse on it and let them know, and then reflecting back to them what I see.
Well, I'll tell you that I guarantee I'll never have Walmart as a sponsor, but I'm not a fan of that mentality where I can get my teeth cleaned at the same place I get my tires changed, right? I'm not a fan of that. That's probably what a lot of these up and coming entrepreneurs are seeing is, be all things to all people, right?
Yeah.
I can, hey, why pay a roofer when I can do it myself?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about the equipment, the insurance. I forgot about hiring the team. I forgot about all the stuff that the roofing contractor has to go through on a regular basis. So I'm hoping that that's not the case, but I feel like that Walmart mentality is permeating some of these people's thoughts. And I just want anyone listening to realize what Ryan just said. You don't have to be all things to all people. I mean, my parents used to say, be good. What is it? Masters of none. I can't remember how they say that. It's like, you're good at everything, but you're a master of none type of thing.
Right.
Jack of all trades, master of none. That's
master
what it is.
That's right.
Yep. So you know what? And you can be a jack of all trades in business. Successful businesses tend to be very niched down. So did you, as we start to land the plane today, I'm just curious, when you I almost feel like that coaching is a little bit of a deviation off your COO piece. Are they really combined in your world, or do you see them starting to separate a little bit?
No, I see them 100%. I'm pushing, leading with the coaching now.
Gotcha.
And I say coaching, it's really training, leadership training and development for business operations managers.
Gotcha.
But I do it in a coaching way. So I'm just not consulting them. I'm giving them best practices, but we're applying it to their specific situation.
Sure.
So it's the same thing that I would be doing as a fractional COO.
Gotcha.
We're just breaking that out.
Great.
And pushing that up front, because it's a lower barrier of entry, right? It's much cheaper. It's a way for them to really get to know me, build trust with me.
Sure.
And so that's what I'm leading with, and then the contracts will come. They'll come in time. But if I help get the people up first, maybe that'll help them enough.
Sure.
And that helps me. It's a win-win situation for me. I can replicate that many times. But then it helps them grow for minimal investment.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and it might be semantics, because I think about if I was in an organization and there was a COO trying to tell me something, if I was on the sales side, I'd be like, dude, stay in your lane. Those are the famous words now, stay in your lane, right? Yeah. It's like, I don't even know what that means, but just stay in your lane, Ryan. But yet I think it's interesting if you came at it from a coach, consultant, different leadership development perspective, my ears would be open if I was, in that space where I wanted to develop. So I think that's really helpful to be able to kind of straddle both sides, because there are plenty of us in sales that we're not friends with the operations people, right? We don't hang out with them. We're throwing stuff at them at the company picnic. I mean, it's like, man, you guys take my budget away. You're always looking for more, So I don't know. Do you see that a lot in organizations, that sales and operations kind of butt heads?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. And it's my goal to really help transform the mindsets of small business, because they have to do stuff differently.
Yeah.
They don't have the money to be that siloed. They don't have the time and the luxury to be that siloed. And again, to use your phrase, stay in your lane. Well, a COO's job is to oversee all the lanes.
Yeah.
Not to get in any of them.
Except sales. Come on now, get out of my sales lane, will you?
So I'm there to support you, Dave. So as a sales manager, sales VP, whatever, I'm there to support you. What do you need? Because if I can help you grow, then
Yeah.
everybody grows. And
Yeah.
so again, I'm here to create win-win situations. I'm
Sure.
probably different than that. I think I'm
That's
realizing
awesome.
I'm different than most COOs.
Sure.
I'm a team builder. I'm a empowerer of people, and I don't want to stifle anybody's growth.
Yeah.
And the only time I would come down and recommend some negative things is if we're not seeing the results. And then at that point, if we set up the processes right, everybody knows the problem,
Yeah.
because everybody sees the sales scoreboard, everybody sees the customer service scoreboard. We all see what's happening here, and
Yep.
so it's not. I'm not a whistleblower. Everybody's going, "Oh, yep, there's the problem. So what are we going to do about it, Ryan? Okay, well, let's
Yeah.
come together. Let's figure out a solution. Let's do it." And so that's the refreshing part of what I'm trying to do.
Cool. Let's blame Ryan, man. He's not here today, so we're gonna totally blame Ryan. That's the fractional part. That's awesome. So one last question, I'm gonna let you go. So tip of the day. Maybe it's something that we talked about, Ryan. Maybe it's something that's on your heart that we haven't shared, but somebody's listening right now and they're kind of like they're intrigued by what you're saying. They don't know what that means to them. So speak to them. What would you share with them?
Yeah, I think it's my passion of servant leadership. I'm a Christ follower. I'm a Christian, and that's the best example of seeing Christ, how he led with love and empathy first. He had some hard truths to tell people, and sometimes COOs have to do that.
Yeah.
But that's not how we're going to lead it. We're gonna be there and say, "Hey, I love you. I want to be there for you. I want to help you. I'll kick you in the pants when you need to." But at the same time, let's grow together. And that's my whole platform is let's grow together. So be open-minded and understand that everybody's a person. Everybody has a life outside of work. Nobody likes to feel like they're trapped at work and they can't talk to anybody. And again, from that third-party perspective, as a trainer, developer, coach,
Yeah.
that's huge for somebody, because typically you can't go and talk to your owner or even a coworker. You're afraid that's going to get back. Hey, so and so is, Dave is not in a good way, so
Yeah.
watch out. That type of thing. So
Yeah.
I just love being there for people. So lead first, serve first. I should say serve first, and then lead from there. If we could all do that, if we could lead with that kind of empathy and love and compassion, we'd get a lot more done, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that servant leadership model where you actually inverse your org chart, and rather than the leader being on the top, the leader's on the bottom, and everybody's just supporting the people above them, trying desperately to make sure that they get their job done and that they crush it. And the customer's in my mind, the customer kind of is at where the leader should be or would be in normal, where it's on the top. Because man, when the customer's not up top, it's really a challenge. And again, to your point, serve first. What a great way to end. And thank you so much for hanging out with me, Ryan. I love what you're doing, and can't wait to keep learning from you. You have made that old word not a swear word, because in sales, operations is a swear word. I got to tell you, people are laughing right now that are listening that know, because they're like, man, operations, if there wasn't operations, life would be awesome. I had a client that said, man, if we didn't have customers and a team, this place would rock.
Yeah. And the funny part is people say they don't like processes, but everybody has them.
Exactly.
Whether they acknowledge it or not, they're all operating off of some process. Let's just work together on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you so much, Ryan. And I can't wait to keep learning from you.
Well, thanks, Dave. I appreciate the opportunity.